afternoon from a cold and grey Nairobi. And I just tweeted this morning how cold it was at 14 degrees. And then somebody from Johannesburg said, you have no idea what being in the freezer is like. And he said it was 3 degrees down there. So, well, it's a little bit warmer on this side of the world. My name is Terryanne Chebet. I am an entrepreneur, digital marketing influencer, media professional and communications professional as well. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon. And my job today is to talk about my experience building my brand as a digital marketing entrepreneur. So my presentation is on the hustle. And as a good producer, I would say produced and directed by Terryanne Chebet, that's me. So what is my hustle? I'll say my hustle is constantly, the deliberate, intentional, and daily brand building for a digital marketing influencer and entrepreneur and founder as well, whose age isn't millennial. And the reason I say that is because the internet and the internet community is changing by the day. And what was great 5 years ago isn't what is great now. I've got a 15-year-old daughter who constantly asks me, Mom, is Facebook still there? Yet I'm still trying to sell things to 12, 15-year-olds. And I, jumped onto TikTok. So there's a lot of dynamism that comes with the deliberate and intentional and daily brand building. So that's exactly what my hustle is. What I did 5 years ago, what I did 10 years ago is completely different from what I'm doing now at the age of 42. And it's also understanding my market, it's understanding my clients and my audience through the different lenses. And I've been lucky to experience different lenses facing into brands from an advertising perspective. I've got an agency known as Keyara Digital, which I founded in 2012, and I've also been basically around the same space. So I've been a client, I've been an advertising professional, and I've also been a digital marketing influencer. So I guess it does give me a bit of an edge when it comes to brand building, and I'll tell you why. So the next slide is about developing my story. And I'll tell you how I've managed to do that over the years. Currently, I've got about 1.5 million followers across my digital media assets. And I started off as a social media marketing consultant in 2012 when I set up Keyara Digital as a social media marketing company. And at that time, there was very few institutions, especially where I operated in, and I was a journalist at the time, who were online. And I approached a bank, a small bank at the time, and I said, hey, I believe I understand how people communicate online. Would you like me to help you do the same? Because they were not online. And that was my first plug. I believe I'd understood how Twitter worked, how Facebook worked. At that point, Instagram wasn't really big in this market. And I knew how to engage with people. I had learned it, and I was confident enough to say, I know how people communicate online. And then later on, I got into PR and advertising and comms, and as an agency, then we said we know how to communicate. This is both offline and online. And as a principle of brand building, for me at least, it has had to be both online and offline. So my plug on that is we know how to communicate. And another plug I use is I know people. And knowing people not from a one-on-one perspective necessarily, although with my background as a news anchor and a media personality, it does mean that I've been able to meet many people of all different levels. As a business journalist, I was constantly interviewing the big CEOs, the entrepreneurs, market movers. So with that in mind, one of my key plugs and perhaps an advantage in brand building and positioning myself as a digital marketing influencer is that I know people, because my career has allowed me to know people. And to be absolutely honest, timing was one of the bigger not strategies. The timing was just great at the time. I was really enjoying what was happening online because I started off as a blogger at some point. I used to write poetry and interesting things I found interesting. So when the digital marketing and influencer trend started coming into the market, then I realized, yes, the time is right. So I had already begun to build my own community of people who listened to me, people who I constantly engaged in. So I then, so the timing was almost absolutely perfect. When companies and agencies began drawing down names of people they thought had some sort of sizable audience and had a good engagement rate, I was, luckily one of those people because I had already been doing it. And authenticity is one of the things that, agencies say. If I wear my hat as an agency, strategy head, we would say we're looking for people who are authentic. But then, so from my own side, I needed to show authenticity in the things that I do. I'm a mom of 2 daughters, which is something I talk about publicly and I share publicly. And because of that, a number of brands that came to work with me did so plainly because they wanted to work with a mom who had, some following online, a mom who understood what she was doing online. And so because of my authenticity as a mom in that case, then they ended up working with me. I'm a business journalist by training, which meant that I then understood how the economy works. So in the event that people needed, like on this particular slide, for some reason I'm struggling to work with my clicker. So one of the things that I benefited from is because I understood how the economy works because of my training and my work as a business journalist across different stations. So they then came to me for moderation around financial issues, energy, entrepreneurship, etc. And that also helped me propel my brand both locally and internationally. And consistency. For me, because my digital marketing or digital influencing is not a side hustle, so consistency isn't negotiable. I have to be visible. I'm constantly posting. I'm looking for trends. I'm being part of that conversation. All right. So one of the things that I've, really thought about in recent times is how to create a global brand. And one, because in the markets that we operate in, the markets are smaller. Kenya is a small market. Africa is a small market in a sense, because we are now, the world is flat, as I say. So each influencer would benefit a lot more by creating a global brand. And the reason is, budgets are bigger internationally. Engagement sometimes is smaller, but budgets are bigger. It just makes more sense to position yourself internationally. And that's exactly what I did. So I have been, growing my brand globally using mainly LinkedIn, growing my networks for conferences and, stand-ins when I can as well, shadowing other MCs, both local and internationally, and telling them, when you're not able to do this, I'm always here for it. And moderators as well. So it has been a journey of engaging, looking out for, moderators that are considered global moderators and speaking to them, sending them my work and saying, if you have a chance or an opportunity that you're not able to be in, please, you could propose me. And also the use of language, collaborators, and attending meetings that position me in a place, because positioning is everything. Every day there's a new, younger, more energetic, more creative, more innovative young person getting into the space. So for me, it's that consistency of making sure I'm getting my language right, communicating in Nairobi the same way I would communicate in Johannesburg, the same way I would communicate to anybody in New York or, wherever else in the world. Finding a digital family for me has also been key, engaging with the right influencers and creating content that will involve the right influencers. This means, yes, I will create content, but I want to create content that other influencers can also share. And when they do, We're also taking advantage of each other's followers, which means sometimes you get, higher following or more engagement on your work. And that's one of the things that I have truly look back and say it did help me quite a bit. To the post-production. So what I'm doing currently is creating content because I left formal media completely, or traditional media as it were, and I'm now building what I would call a TV channel with multiple plugins. And my plugins would be Twitter, my plugins would be Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, all my social media handles, places where I can actually create video. I do that. The same way anybody would go to a TV channel. You'll get entertainment, you'll get sports, you'll get lifestyle. So what I'm doing is trying to create all this so that when somebody comes to my platform, they will be able to find all this. So I'm doing real estate, I'm doing entrepreneurship, I'm doing salsa dancing, I'm doing workout. So I want my space and my platform to be considered as a TV channel on its own. And I've begun to see brands beginning to see that, because what you then get is a wider variety of audience. And I know initially, they would say stick to one thing and, build your brand in that space. But now that everybody's online and everybody's looking for all different kinds of content, if you're able to produce that on your own channel, then why not? And I'm beginning to, I've seen some really great brands coming on board to partner with me on that. And of course, defining and refining my personal brand is key. As I mentioned earlier, the digital community is changing, the digital tribe is getting younger, but we must still stay relevant because it comes with a bit of legacy, but also it comes with credibility. So consistent brand building is huge for me, and that is something I do every single day. Monetizing my personal brand as well. When we kicked off, it was mostly about just getting word out there, getting your name, but monetizing it is important, which is why I said that digital influencing is not a side hustle for me anymore. It is one of my key sources of income. And I now realize that it is incredibly important to learn how to monetize your personal brand. And looking at the things that I've mentioned in terms of on the content side, so I will learn, I've learned to monetize on Twitter, I've learned to monetize on YouTube, not just on the YouTube ads, but partnering with clients who will come on board and pay for the content that I'm creating. So it's one thing to be, a great big name influencing, but if clients don't want to work with you, then, what are you really doing? So going global is something I've done over the last couple of years now. I've worked with a couple of global brands such as Land Rover South Africa, Molfix from Turkey, and a few others who are international collaborations for me. And for any influencer and for any marketer who's looking, around that space, the marketplace is changing. If I look at my YouTube and some of my followers from YouTube, yes, I do have a substantial audience from Kenya and from Tanzania and Uganda, because they're within the East African community, and we speak the same languages, so that's easier. But I also have seen a growing audience from the United States, the United Kingdom, and the UAE, sometimes mostly because there's also other Kenyans in the diaspora who would be interested in the kind of content that I produce. But I now realize more than ever that when we're sending our analytics to clients, and data doesn't lie, then there is a position there for a global audience that is now growing. So we're competing with the TV channels, with the radio channels, with the podcasts, and everybody else who's on the global platform. And my final plug on going global is that I realize that when you're globally visible, you're a premium brand locally. So when you work with global brands, it does raise your level of credibility. It says a lot about how other brands view you, and I've benefited greatly from that particular global positioning. So I've come to the end of my my presentation, and I just want to thank all of you for listening today. Do follow my Instagram handle is Terryanne Chebet, Facebook Terryanne Chebet, and YouTube as well. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and enjoy the rest of the conference.